I'm Adam Yancey from the Brooklyn Bread Lab and also the Williamsburg Hotel. The Bread Lab is the baking department of the hotel, but the Bread Lab is modeled after a bread lab in Seattle where wheat is milled and then mixed into bread. At the Bread Lab here in Brooklyn, we do bread, pasta, pizza, and really anything that has to do with wheat. We're going to make a bread out of a wheat from Kansas called turkey wheat from Kansas. And we're going to make a simple rustic style bread loaf. Take the flour, dump it all in, water. It's really not that crazy of a process. Everything just goes into a bowl. One thing that is unique is after this flour, water, this is the sourdough, gets mixed in, it's going to sit. And that's called autolyse. That's a bread making technique that helps hydrate flour and start enzymatic activity to make the bread rise. So what we do is just mix by hand until it kind of clumps together and looks like wet sand and let it sit. A real autolyse is about 45 minutes. And that will make all the flour more or less fully hydrated, which will shorten the time that we need to mix this dough. You may have noticed that I haven't put the salt in. When autolyse, you don't put the salt in. You wait for salt. So after the 45 minutes, we're going to add salt. Okay. So now we've made a mess. We'll let it sit for about 45 minutes. 45 minutes has passed, and it's time to add salt. The flour and water has become harmonious and become one. And now we're going to do a series of folds where I'm just grabbing the corner of the dough and pulling them towards the center. It's just a pull and then a push right in the center. Kind of just pulling the corner. It's still kind of a sloppy, doesn't look like much. You can do this for about 5 minutes, just pulling and pushing. You can kind of see as I pull it, it's getting stronger now. So you have to kind of recognize when the ball becomes a little bit smoother. It's not going to be like that pasta dough, baby's bottom, but it will look more like what you think of the dough. So now that our ball's kind of really formed, and still you can see little bits of flour on it, it's not like a perfect thing, we're going to take it and move it on the bench. And this is where you're going to kind of see the thing you might be used to, what some people call kneading. As a professional, we call it mixing. And this is just mixing the flour. And right now I'm just going to really get it to come together. There's not a magic technique to making bread strong. You just need to move it. That very action of moving flour and water together builds all the strength. You'll want to have a scraper because this is going to stick. So much water in this dough. Now it's so sticky, we're going to add a little bit of flour just to dry it. It's a little moister in here today than normal. And I'm just going to bring it together. I'm going to pull it in like a deck of cards, as if, or like all in on your poker chips. So just like this. Get into a ball. And the ball is going to go back in the bowl. It still looks like a mess. But the beauty is this is going to sit for 12 hours. In 12 hours, we'll let the yeast do its thing, and that'll build the rest of our strength. You'll see how strong it gets as it sits. So in the bowl, and I'm just going to cover it with a towel. So after the bread dough has been mixed, which you saw, and it has a chance to rise, it needs to be shaped. The shaping gives some surface tension to the dough, which gives a little structure so you can get a pretty loaf. So I'm dumping out our dough, which has only risen about 25% from its original volume. Bread like this doesn't double like you read in books. It goes up about 25% to 30%. That's just the nature of whole grain. We got our big mass here that's got some captured CO2, the air inside that makes bread light. Flour down on the bench, and now flour on top. I'm going to cut this dough to fit 10 baskets, so there'll be 500 grams each. And I'm going to show you how to cut it. You're going to need your dough scraper, And when you do cut, the idea is to cut clean so that way we can capture and keep all the gas inside each little loaf. So as I cut, I push away, and that keeps this separated. Trying not to tear it. So that's one. Now again, the purpose of shaping is to make a surface tension to get this into a loaf form. So that way when it goes into the oven, it'll rise evenly in the oven and bake evenly. First, flip the dough over so it's pretty side. The side that was rising the whole time, and expose the air. The docking is where we take our hands and a little flour and punch down. Try not to push the gas out of the bread, but just to flatten it. Then we're going to take it and stretch just a little bit, very gingerly, and then fold in half. And what's been folded in half, we're going to then stretch from side to side, like so. Turn it, and then roll it up. And that's how we shape. You'll be able to see all the tension and how it has a little structure in the basket to rest for another 12 hours. Ready to go in the oven. Underneath the dough that we slashed, you may have seen I put a little bit of flour, and let's let it slide off the peel. I'm going to bake at about 500 degrees, which will be different in my oven than in yours. So please use your home oven all the way up to its highest setting to really achieve a true 500. For a small loaf, about 1 kilo, it's maybe 20 minutes at 500 degrees. If you have any method of putting water in the oven, either like an ice cube inside of a cast iron pan or a little spray bottle, a little steam is helpful. Alright, so after a 20-minute hard bake, the bun is ready to come out of the oven and go directly onto a cooling rack so that way a little bit of air can go underneath it and keep your lovely crust. Golden brown everywhere, and then just cook completely through. One way to tell if it's cooked all the way is to give it a tap. And you can hear that it's hollow. That's how you know it's cooked.